What's up, y'all? This is Julian Baudouin here with you again with another episode of Roots and Revenue, produced by the Hub South Dakota. If you are new joining us, the Roots and Revenue podcast is designed to talk about the root of the human being before we talk about the professionalism of the person as well. And so today we're here with David Blackburn. I'm really excited about this conversation, particularly because I've been wanting to know this guy for a long time. His name has been circulating around this city for a while. He's certainly, I hate to say an up and coming leader. I think this man's a leader for sure in the industry that he's in. And so I've been wanting to get to know him. And so this is going to be a treat for me just to ask some questions, get to hear his story. But before we do that, I'm going to give you, David, a chance to introduce yourself. Tell us who you are, what you do, and maybe even a little bit about what you hope to accomplish in this city.
For sure. I'm David Blackburn. I am 32 years old. I've lived in Sioux Falls for about the last 14, 15 years. I'm in the medical cannabis industry here in South Dakota, and it's definitely a uphill swim. But throughout its challenges, I find it very rewarding. It's definitely something that I personally find that has saved and changed my life. And I love spreading that message to other people, love helping people find their journey through that path as well. We obviously have to be a little bit careful about what we say and what we do due to regulations and advertising, stuff like that. But no, I feel like there's a huge stigma about what this, natural plant can do. And I just hope that more people can not only, I'm not trying to say that people need to open their eyes as far as using it themselves, but at least do a little bit of research and find that this is a safe alternative to a lot of the prescription pills and opioids and alcoholic beverages and all this untested material that we're putting in our bodies. The stuff that we do here in the state of South Dakota, honestly, is a lot safer than some of the food that these people be eating. So,
man, listen, tell me about it. I had to recently go on like a cleanse of some of the food and stuff that I was eating. I had gotten a little too heavy and unhealthy, and so
it's hard, man.
I know exactly what you're talking about. I really do want to dig into your industry a little bit more, a little bit later, particularly because I am, as you know, a certified law enforcement officer.
Yeah.
And one of the things that we in law enforcement don't typically talk about publicly anyways is marijuana, or our personal thoughts and feelings on marijuana and how it has impacted people, particularly in the Black community. And so, again, I want to, get to that down the road, but let's start off with maybe just some questions about you.
For sure.
Where are you originally from? You said you moved here about 13, 14 years ago. Talk about your childhood,
man. Long story, but
I think we got time.
Yeah, no, we good there. Born and raised in Kansas City, Missouri for the first few years of my life.
So you're a Chiefs fan?
Oh, yeah.
Well,
yeah.
I mean,
even after the other day, I'm still going to proudly rep it. You know what I mean?
Oh, here we go. But, here we go.
It's a little warm in here, so I had to take off the stocking hat. But yeah, no, proudly Chiefs fan for sure. And we've been through the up and down in that situation. But I lived there for the first few years of my childhood, and my mom and dad kind of didn't get along, so she moved out and lived with my grandma in small town Iowa for another few years, again, of early childhood. Moved up to Sioux Falls for like a year of that period, maybe when I was like 6, 7, I believe. Again, super young, kind of foggy. But after that, she had met my little brother's dad up in Minneapolis, and we kind of lived there for about 10 years. And after my sophomore year in high school, I came and lived with my grandma after my grandpa had passed down in Rock Rapids, Iowa, where I finished high school there. Big culture difference.
Oh, I bet,
man.
Kansas City, Minneapolis,
small town Iowa. Yeah. So this month means a lot to me when it comes to that. So I definitely have gone through a lot of challenges those last 2 years of high school. But I feel like now looking back on it, it definitely kind of shaped me to be as resilient as I am and have more thick skin when it comes to some of the audacity that some of these people have when it comes to comments, and especially online. But yeah, no, graduated high school. My grandpa was a member of the military back in the day, served in both world wars. So my pledge to him before he passed away was that I would join the military as well. I tried that out, joined the National Guard. Surprisingly, was a military police officer for about a year and a half.
All right. I ain't mad at
it. Tore my knees, and they threatened to recycle me. So instead of doing all that over again, I was like, you know what, maybe this isn't for me. Wasn't really a fan of kind of how I was treated during that period. So I got out of there, came back, lived with friends here in Sioux Falls, and that was in about 2012. And I've been here ever since, and kind of just found different jobs. I've done everything from fast food, construction. I was a welder for a while. I went to school for that, and then I ended up getting diagnosed with degenerative disc disease.
Now,
Had
what is that?
it's so obviously you have your vertebrae, and then you have
Mhm.
like the discs in between your vertebrae, and those dissipate over time a lot
Right.
faster in my spine
Sure.
than other people's, than the normal person, I should say. And I started noticing a lot of bad back pain. And one day I had family in town for 4th of July, and it was in a chair pretty similar to this, and I was the one doing the fireworks, and I was like getting up, lighting the firework, getting up, sitting down, and we sat in the chair around the fire for probably a good 4 hours that night. I woke up the next morning, and I don't know if I had sat wrong or something, but I had pinched a nerve, and like I couldn't move the lower half of my body.
Wow.
Yeah, that shit was
Wow.
scary.
Yeah.
So was there for a while until I can't remember exactly how long, but after a while I ended up being able to move. I
Okay.
kind of forced myself up out of bed.
Yep.
But then I started to go see a doctor, and then I realized that I had an MRI. They didn't really see anything too wrong. And
Sure.
so I was like, no, there's something wrong.
Yeah.
Like I'm used
Like,
to
I
playing.
feel it.
Yeah, I've played football for
Yeah.
I played semi-pro football in high school, played sports all through high school, and like I was a manual labor worker essentially. So like
Yeah.
I know that I can, I can
For
lift
sure.
stuff, move stuff.
Yeah.
Bending down to do something
It's
shouldn't make me
nothing.
feel like this.
Yep.
And so months after PT, I did another MRI, and they noticed that the disc on between my L4, L5, the two lower, right above your tailbone,
Yep.
had dissipated by about 30%.
Oh.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so I continued to do therapy. I did PT for a good couple months after that.
Okay.
Did water therapy, did a lot of swimming, did cupping. I did everything you can think of, even epidural cortisone shots.
Okay.
Nothing helped. And so I ended up having a lower lumbar fusion.
Okay.
So I have both posterior and anterior. So they cut me open in the front and the back, put a cage on my spine essentially. So it's fused.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So all the manual labor that I did, everything I knew kind of beforehand got just completely taken away.
For sure.
And this is where the cannabis thing comes into play because I had always kind of been like a recreational user throughout life. But that's where I kind of ran into your field a few different times before it became medically legal. But after that, I got prescribed, opioids, muscle relaxers, and all these different crazy narcotics that just made me not like who I was. Like the pain was away, but like everything was away. I was literally like laying in bed drooling.
Sure.
Like, and I just had a kid at the point too. So like he was just 1-2 years old.
Sure.
And excuse me, wanting to play and stuff. And dad can't.
Right.
I'm laid up. Like,
physically, you just can't do it. Yeah.
Physically, it killed me, and mentally,
I'm sure too.
Dude, it sucked.
Yeah.
So I found out that like I changed my relationship with the way that I was using cannabis. And instead of just smoking blunts to get high, it was finding strains that helped me get pain relief to make sure that like I can still be mentally clear, but like I'm not gonna be dying by trying to walk around and have a relationship with my child at that point. And then I found out that there's more to it than just smoking too. So like I got into topicals and tinctures and even capsules and stuff that I could take and kind of control my dosage to where I'm again all here, but a lot of the stress and pain relief and stuff is kind of taken away.
Yeah, for sure.
And I stopped cold turkey on all my pain medication immediately that day that I had kind of found out that there was more to it.
Yep. And
then that was about a year before medical cannabis was actually here in state. So it was kind of difficult.
What year was that? 2019?
2021.
21. Okay.
Yeah, it was
so just after COVID.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. All right. It sucked, man. But again, kind of changed my thought process of how I could use this holistically versus just recreationally. And nothing against anybody who does, but obviously South Dakota is a state where it's medical, so you have to have a medical reason.
Legally.
Yep. And so that's my medical reason. They immediately looked at my thing and said, yeah, chronic pain, you're good.
Yeah. But well, listen, I'm going to put it this way. I'm not glad you went through those struggles, but I am glad you had your eyes open to explore a new career based on your experience, and you've made the most of it for sure, man. Again, like I said before, I look at you as one of the leaders in this industry. We had so my wife and I had a show, and we still kind of have it every now and then. It's called The Vibe over at Swamp Daddies, and this was April. Oh, it was 420. It was 420 of 22, 23, 22 or 23, something like that. And I believe that was the first time I actually face-to-face came in contact with you. and we had such a vibrant discussion around the benefits of marijuana. And so from then on, I was like, man, this guy's sharp. This guy's intelligent. This is somebody that our community really needs to be in tune with, not just on medical marijuana, but how to also tune into your inner strength to change your mindset and change how you develop yourself. And so that's just one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on this podcast, because I believe there's a lot of insight that you can give to folks who are listening out there to help them gain their inner strength and gain some clarity about who they are and the direction in which they want to go and the direction in which they need to go. So again, I just really appreciate you being here with us. Let's now dive into
praises, man.
For sure, bro. Listen, the actions, man. Actions speak louder than words, and you're out here showing it. So, okay, so let's dive into just kind of what you were talking about before, your recreational use.
Yeah.
This might be a little bit of a personal question. Did you ever come into contact with law enforcement because of personal use?
Many times.
Okay, so how was that experience for you as a Black man? And where was it? Was it in this state, Kansas City?
It was here.
Okay.
I have a long list of cannabis charges, unfortunately. Okay. Most of them misdemeanors. I did end up getting one felony charge for a cartridge that I had that ended up being empty, actually.
And just to maybe provide a little clarity around that, the state laws gives a difference, not necessarily a preference, but it differentiates raw marijuana from altered marijuana.
Manufactured, yeah.
Or manufactured marijuana. And so that cartridge, which I assume had oil in it at one point, although it was empty, it still had maybe a residue of oil left in it. And so raw marijuana, if you correct me if I'm wrong, but it's less than 2 ounces that you could possess without a felony charge. But if it's altered
without a medical card,
without a medical card, but if it's altered or or manufactured in any form in any amount,
could be that's a felony. One single gummy, it could be a half a gummy, a bottle of tincture, an empty cartridge, a packet. Sometimes they'll charge you for like a package depending on the police officer.
Absolutely. And then if it's the residue, it's in there. It's any.
Yep.
So that's important for folks to know for sure.
Absolutely.
So I'm glad you said that. And sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead and continue. I just wanted to make sure folks knew that.
No, you're good. So I've had a few. The misdemeanor charges, one unfortunately was when I had somebody break into my house. And when I was gone, I came back. Police were already there. And I actually went to the gas station to get a blunt wrap, right? And so I came back and I had the blunt worth of marijuana on my table that I was going to roll. Mm-hmm. And they didn't arrest me then, right? So they didn't even care about the fact they thought it was a drug robbery back then. And I can't remember, 2014, something like that, I think. And they saw the cannabis and they asked me about it. And then they asked immediately, like, oh, so do you sell weed? Or are you like, is this a drug robbery? And I'm like, my TV is off the wall. My clothes are missing. Like, dude, this is not a weed.
Does it look like it, man?
Right.
Like,
And they never caught the guy. But anyway, like 2-3 weeks later, I get a letter in the mail with a warrant for my arrest for possession of marijuana. And it was because of the fact that I had openly admitted that weed was mine. And that I planned to smoke it.
Sure.
And so it was a total surprise because I was like, me and I, like the cop had a conversation about it, and he didn't seem like it was a big deal. Right. And then I had just got robbed, and then to get a letter in the mail saying that I have a warrant a couple weeks later. So anyway, excuse me, I went and turned myself in, did the program, ended up having a couple do drug classes and things like that. But all the other times were in the car and just being dumb.
Sure. Yeah.
Never a DUI or anything, just possessing it, going to and from.
Yeah.
And
we were talking about the charges that you got in the vehicle, never a DUI.
Correct.
Just the possession charges.
Yep.
Any paraphernalia charges come with that?
I don't think so.
No. Okay.
No.
A lot of times what people don't realize is that if you have marijuana and it's separated from the original package,
right,
that package could then also be considered as paraphernalia. And so then that's...
I didn't even know that.
Yeah. See, now that's multiple charges.
Right.
And paraphernalia is a drug charge. So multiple drug charges that folks have on their records.
So every time I got caught, it was with a ready-to-go joint or like just a bag with some weed in it.
For sure.
It was nothing too crazy.
Yeah.
Or the time I got the felony charge was I was driving to work, and it was during COVID. And when I got to, this is when I worked in Freeman. And so I was a welder out there, and COVID was crazy. So every day when you got into work, they did a thermometer on the forehead. And excuse me, I always wore a hat. And the day before, I got sent home because my forehead temperature was too high. And so I had rolled down my windows a block away from work, took my hat off, and I was driving, and the cop pulled me over because he thought that was weird behavior. And
it's all good.
So he pulls me out of the car and claims that it smells like weed, which it did, because at the time I had lived in an apartment complex. There was no smoking on the property. So I would get in the car at night, drive out to the parking lot, or drive off the parking lot out to the street, smoke a joint in my car, and then walk back to the apartment. So my car, it smelled like weed.
Sure.
I understand that.
Yep.
Pulled me out, and I had the empty cartridge in my little door compartment or whatever.
Yep.
And it was small town South Dakota. So let me back up a little bit. I got out of the car and I was smoking a cigarette. And when I realized I still had the cigarette in my hand and we were walking back to his vehicle, I asked, hey, can I put this out instead of throwing it, getting a littering charge or something. And so I turn around and I go put it in my ashtray, and I turn back around to walk back to his car, and he's standing there with his hand on his gun. And I was like, kind of took me back a little bit. Why would you tell me that I could do that?
Yeah. If
you even thought
that
I was going to do anything to harm you.
Yep.
Tell me no. Tell me to fucking eat it or something. But no, so that kind of took me back, and it put me in a defensive mode. And he puts me in the front seat of his car, and I'm a big dude, and they're small vehicles. Yep. Other than the driver's seat.
Because there's equipment in there, you got to squeeze your way in the passenger
So I'm sitting here like this, and he's like, you can see my heart beating through my chest. He goes, "Why are you so nervous?" I was like, "Because you just had your hand on your gun, dude." When I went to go put a cigarette in my car, and you immediately pulled me out of the vehicle and say it smells like weed. It's like, I'm not going to be like, yeah, sure. I'm not going to be happy about that. And I've had a history of this before, so I know what's going to happen.
Right.
And so he asked if he can search the vehicle, and I say no. And so he goes, okay, well, we're going to get a canine. And so I sat there for 30 to 45 minutes, maybe a little bit longer, before the canine came. And I actually heard on the radio, she was completing another call first before she came out there.
Sure.
And then dog came, marked. Then I got arrested, brought to Mitchell.
So that strikes me as odd. And I'm not going to get into it too much on this podcast. What strikes me as odd, number one, is that the way state law is written, if a law enforcement officer smells marijuana, they can get into the car. That is probable cause to get into the vehicle. Why would they have the need to call a canine out
and make me wait for 45
and make you wait for 45
So that was
minutes.
why I fought it for a long time, because of the fact that you're not supposed to make people wait for that long, or something of unreasonable
amount of time. And so you said she was finishing another call, which in the court's eyes that means it's reasonable.
Right.
Yeah. So I get that. You can articulate that to really
and I had a public defender, so
and
small town South Dakota,
a whole different problem in this state.
Yep.
But we're talking about what we're really talking about though is the impact that those type of charges. We're not talking DUI. We're just talking the possession.
100%.
You didn't put anyone else's life in jeopardy
right.
by possessing marijuana, and now we have medical marijuana that's legal.
Mm-hmm.
The state is still backwards to where we're, recreational is not legal yet. Hopefully, eventually, one day in 100 years, whenever.
Again.
Right.
After we already
got it through. Again, a whole different conversation. but this particular drug has been so negatively impactful on the lives of Black men.
Mm-hmm.
And then in this state, so negatively impactful on the lives of indigenous men.
Mm-hmm.
I just heard a stat from the state legislature that our demographics are very similar to demographics of North Dakota. Even when you break it down into race categories,
mm-hmm.
we have twice as many folks incarcerated as the state of North Dakota, and more than 60% of those folks are in there because of drug-related
mm-hmm.
charges. Of that 60%, 80% are marijuana charges.
Mm-hmm.
That's insane.
I heard another thing too, along with that. It was like 20% of that is all out of staters too, like people just traveling through, like not even South Dakota residents.
That is insane. So, you know, the drug business. People say the drug business.
Right.
It is certainly a business for both those who sell it and also for the state, because incarcerated people make the state money, and folks
costs the state money too.
It costs the state a lot of money, but it also makes them money because of the private prison industry, and so we kind of, again, a whole different conversation. But Black and Indigenous men are the one that's really impacted the most by that.
100%.
Let's maybe talk about, just to switch gears a little bit, let's talk about kind of the way you have been able to not just change your mindset, but change your whole career trajectory by using what previously could have been seen as something that hindered you, into now something that has put you on a path to success.
You got to know the rules if you want to play the game.
Say that again.
That's essentially it. I mean, if you want to play basketball, you got to know you got to stay within the lines. 3-pointers are worth 3, 2s. So it's the same thing here. I mean, the state, the government, whatever, if it's the federal government, the state government, legislators, the rules are the rules. If you want to play within the boundaries, you have to. I mean, you got to make sure that you're sticking to the rules that are set for it. And once medical cannabis passed, I got lucky. Essentially, I had a friend who was going to help people get educated about what a medical card could do for you. And as I was setting up doing that, I met a dispensary owner, and he hired me as the manager there, and helped set up one of the first dispensaries here in South Dakota, Sioux Falls, the first one. Things didn't work out, so then I went and I helped Cam Young at East River, helped them get set up there too as well.
Which, Cam, if you're watching this, you got to get on this show too. We need you on.
We waiting.
Yeah.
But no, they have their owner group, and I wanted more than just to be an employee.
Sure.
So I got in tune with Roy, who actually reached out and found me, because I guess I gave him a tour when I had worked at one of the previous companies, and he had liked, I guess, what he saw. So I got really lucky. His assistant reached out to me, and then we kind of just established a relationship there. And then I just dove deep into the laws, the legislation. I want to make sure that every I is dotted and every T is crossed, and that I know what we're doing is compliant. And I had to slow down and make sure that, because otherwise you're risking yourself. You're risking everybody around you, all your employees and everything too. So I think that was the biggest change in the mindset of wanting to help people was the thing for me too. Because I saw what it did for me with my back surgery, and wanting to help people. That's where I initially got into, was with the medical card thing. So then it just kind of blossomed from there. And now me helping people turns from me helping patients now diagnose or help train the staff. Figure out what they can, do to help potentially not heal, but help alleviate the person get through, a tougher day.
Yeah, absolutely. So one thing you mentioned right there was just your will or your want to help people get better. One of the things that I think fits perfectly between you and the organization you work for, particularly Roy, is that he also has that same mindset.
100%.
I know there's some community initiatives that he really wants to be involved in, and sometimes can be hindered from being involved in because of state laws hindering, like you said earlier, have to be careful what you say and what you do because of advertising laws and
we had to,
all of that. But yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry. We had to create an entirely nonprofit organization just to be able to help things like Face It Together, which is an anti-addiction program. And we want to help the community.
Because the goal is to make sure that people are using responsibly. Right? Yeah, go ahead.
And addiction is a huge thing. And we agree. My cousin actually works for Face It Together too. Shout out Megan. Our mindset with them is totally aligned. It's not the substance that's the problem. I mean, you can be addicted to a McDonald's cheeseburger, but there are thousands of people. We have probably, and don't quote me, but one of the highest DUI rates in the country. It's insane here. Alcohol abuse is insane here, and it's advertised everywhere. There's booze boys on both sides of town. There's different liquor stores everywhere. Even gas stations are carrying hard liquor beer, all these flavored seltzers and all this stuff, and it's not regulated to the point where you're controlled on how much you can buy. Once you're 21, you can go spend however much money at a gas station, at a liquor store, or whatever else, and buy a million different bottles of liquor and hand them out as you see fit. And there's no tracking, there's no nothing to do that. It's not even close to the same here.
Yeah. I mean, so here's what I will say, and I'm going to speak from my experience as a state trooper for over 13 and a half years or so, is that I made hundreds of DUI arrests. Mm-hmm. And at the beginning of my career, I would say that your statement is 100% accurate. Towards the end of my career, we did start to see other drugs become involved, particularly when you talk about meth. Mm-hmm. And then also prescription medication. Prescription medication, the illegal use of that, and also the abuse of prescription medication is, I would say, at an all-time high right now. People are just unaware of those things, but marijuana fell way down at the bottom of those DUI arrests, in that category. Mm-hmm. And so I just think it's really important that people understand what you guys are trying to accomplish. You're not just trying to sell folks weed. Mm-hmm. That's not the goal. You're trying to make sure people are educated. You're trying 100%. To make sure they're using responsibly. They're using it for the right thing. And you're doing that by also supporting your language with your actions. And so yeah, let's now move into the future of David. What do you want to do? What is your, and I asked this question with a lot of people. I'm going to phrase it this way for you. If you were in 100% control of Sioux Falls, not the entire state, but just Sioux Falls, mm-hmm. what would the next 5 years of Sioux Falls look like for David Blackburn?
That's a tough question. I would say one, there's been a lot of violence, car break-ins, stolen guns, weapons, things like that. I actually used to live at the Westview Heights apartment complex, and like literally 3 days after we moved out, like 30 cars or something had been broken into. So I would just say anything detrimental to your neighbor, man, gotta stop. Like, why? Yeah, I don't understand. There's plenty of opportunities to work out here. There's plenty of opportunities to get money. As somebody who has a long criminal record, unfortunately, like I found a way to make it happen, and other people have too. And I guarantee you, there are ways to make, a means to an end without hurting somebody next to you. Yeah. So I would say definitely stopping any of the negativity of any criminal activity for sure. But it's hard to say, man. I want to kill the stigma of what I do and what people like me do. I want to make people feel like they're safe, not only in their homes, but in their schools, at their jobs. There's been a lot of negativity regarding race with the recent administration. I've heard it even hitting close to home with Washington High School now pulling kids out of class to see like their birth certificates. There was an attempt to, I believe, defund the education department for ESL and Huron District. And so, like, this is hitting home. And so, I know you said Sioux Falls, so I'll stay just to the Washington part.
It's all good. It's all good.
There's just so much hate and shit. And, like, everybody can just scroll on their phone and just see negativity. And I feel like Sioux Falls is kind of like the perfect mixture of, we're on the brink of being a big city, especially if we get, like, the Harrisburg, if we, add those places onto it. But, like, we're small enough to where the community still has a beating heart, and, like, we can come together and still make an impact. A few of us coming together and doing some stuff can make an impact. Like, we're not far enough gone. I just don't feel like there's enough effort from enough people. There's effort, and a tremendous amount of effort from a small group of people, like yourself. So thank you for that. This stuff is huge for the community, man. We just need more like-minded individuals, and people to open their eyes.
For sure, and keep their hearts open. So I'm gonna back up. So if you're watching this and you've seen some previous episodes, you know that's typically one of the last questions I ask. But you said something that made me want to jump back into it. You spoke about legislation,
for sure,
and I should have asked this to begin with, but there was recently some legislation that was introduced to roll back medical cannabis
entirely.
It did not pass.
Correct.
Thank heavens it did not pass. But let's just say it would have, because typically what we see in our legislature is that that's not the first time you're going to see it introduced. They'll come back either, they can't introduce any more bills this year, but they'll come back, after a summer study, and then next year they'll have different language, they'll change the things, and they might have a better chance at rolling those efforts back. What would that look like for you in your industry if it did roll back?
Everybody that currently has a medical card and is in possession of cannabis that was legal yesterday in this hypothetical situation would now become a criminal. I mean, parents, grandparents, brothers, sisters, moms, dads, wives, husbands, like, would get thrown in jail.
And that's big because our medical marijuana card holders are in the thousands, tens of thousands now.
11,000 plus at the current moment, as of, I believe, like the 12th of January. But
that's crazy.
Yeah, and a good portion of it, honestly, man, would be felony charges. Our average patient that I've seen throughout any dispensary that I've been to, worked at, or anything throughout the state is about 55 years old. So it's not all people that look like me. It's not all your average stoner. Like, honestly, we'd never see that. Like, we see parents, grandparents come in with terrible conditions that just want a better day. And like, that's what we strive to help for. It's not the dude with long hair riding a skateboard in, yeah, bro, like, give me your dopest dope. Right. Like, that doesn't happen. So that's
it's not a movie. It's real life.
Right. And I just wish that anybody, like, I truly invite anybody who has any negative mindset about this whatsoever, just come be a fly on the wall for one day. Like, I will humbly invite you in and take any advice that you have, any criticism. And like, I just want you to see, like, give us a chance to change your mindset, because it's not what people think. Like, we are not some dude's basement garage, but we're also not like an Apple store to where we're all in suits and ties and like, we treat everybody with love and respect and like,
a sense of humanity.
Exactly, because everybody that works for me and everybody that works for Roy, like, is a patient themselves. So like, we are who we talk to. We see ourselves in the people we talk to.
Man. And that's an amazing feeling to have when you walk into any business, is that you can see the reflection of the person that you're looking at. And my next question, which you kind of answered, was going to be to have you talk directly to those who maybe have a different mindset. But you did open up your doors, essentially, to say, come in, stand next to me, let's get a different perspective of this thing. Have you had, particularly the legislature or the legislators, have you had anybody reach out to say, let me get a different view of this thing?
No, not once. And even when I was doing the Coffee House podcast years ago, same thing. This is probably the third or fourth time I've made this invitation public. Now I've moved through a couple different spots as I've done it, but like, the story remains the same. It's not what people think, and it is a lot cleaner and safer. And like, just to touch on something, if you go on to any of the South Dakota news companies' websites right now, or even like their Facebook pages or whatever, scroll for 1 second. I guarantee you'll see a story about that recent cannabis that was laced with fentanyl. Right?
Yeah, for sure. I've seen it all over my news.
1,000% would not happen if it was legal. It would not. There is a 0% chance. Not even close.
Right.
Like, it's so, like, South Dakota has the strictest testing, like, restraints when it comes to this. Like I said earlier, like, it's safer than what people put in their bodies, as far as like the water they drink, the food they eat, the vape they smoke, the alcohol they drink, like, everything. It's so crazy. It's more strict than California standards. It's more strict than Colorado standards. Like, it's the strictest in the country. So for, like, I'll show you a COA. I'll show you how there's zero negative stuff in there. Like, it's all good organic medicine.
Man, that's a really important point. The one that I'm glad you brought up, I missed it for sure. Going through this thing, it kind of, like I said, it's all over my news feed. But they're trying to use that as an argument to say why marijuana is dangerous.
Right.
And you make a really valid point to say, listen, if this was legal, we have the regulations to make sure that this doesn't happen. Right? We're abiding by the regulations that was set by the state, by this same legislature.
And that children wouldn't get it either.
You
have to be ID'd at the door.
Right.
Like, you can't, I guarantee you there have been controlled buys in the state, especially in the city of Sioux Falls already, to the point where, like, nobody's going to get past the check-in counter if you don't have an active medical card with a state ID next to it. Like, 100% will not happen.
Man.
Nobody out here is going to risk their license for that. Because everybody wants the same thing.
See, and I haven't visited a store. I need to go in and just visit a store. I'm 100%. Not a marijuana user, but I just need to come in and visit the store as well.
Bring the camera.
Yeah, for sure. We should do that. We should do that. Maybe
Okay.
we'll do a part 2 of this,
Yeah.
and we'll do it in the store, without the signage.
Right. Yeah.
But we'll do it in the store because I really think this is a vibrant conversation to continue to have.
For sure.
And I also think economically, like if we move forward in a way to where recreational marijuana is legal, economically, this could really, really benefit our situation as South Dakotans.
Yeah, and like I mentioned, we have this nonprofit organization, right? And we do work with a number of organizations here in the state. And there have been times to where they're like, we don't even know, like, where's this money coming from? And like, truthfully, the money's coming out of Roy's pocket because it's a nonprofit organization, and like, there's ways to raise funds and stuff, but it's not coming from cannabis money. But even the fact that it's Roy's cares and Roy's spent, like, they don't like it.
Yeah.
And there's other people that, will try to embrace it, but then again are, kind of constricted with federal regulations and things. If they're like like United Way, for example, is one that couldn't take money from us because of the fact that they're federally backed and organized, and cannabis is not federally legal.
Yeah.
So we have to be careful as far as those. We can volunteer like man hours and do stuff like that. Like we've done Bishop Dudley House, where we go down there and we sponsor a meal a month down there for the homeless shelter. We go serve as much as we can. Times are crazy right now with busy, so we don't do it as much as we would like to, but we try to give back to the community as much as possible, as much as we're allowed to.
As much as you're allowed to,
But your point with the recreational aspect of it is, I heard Q1 of last year in Sioux Falls alone, the school district was $250,000 in debt for the school lunch program. That would be totally wiped out.
Yeah.
100% guarantee.
Yeah.
If it was structured properly by the legislators and by the law writers and things like that. I can't guarantee it because I'm not the one writing it, but they have the potential to do that.
Yeah.
And there are a lot more cannabis users in the state than the 11,000 med card holders that we have.
Yes.
Unfortunately, those people either can't afford it, or the law has made it too hard for them to get a medical card, or they just don't know how to.
Yeah.
And we can't help them. And the doctors that can prescribe the cards, they can't help them either.
They can't help them either.
You got to find them on your own.
Yeah.
And like South Dakota is the #1 state in the country for telehealth medicine. You have to be in person for this. Wow. Again, something that can't hurt, like won't hurt anybody. I could if I drop my pill bottle and there's opioids there, like, who knows what damage that could do.
A ton of damage, particularly if it gets in the hands of kids, like what you just said. This is much more controlled than those other things. Man, this has been an eye-opening discussion. David, I appreciate you, man. Again, for all of the work that you're doing. I appreciate you for enlightening us on the show today. And I really do look forward to a part 2. So I appreciate you, man, and thank you for coming on. Thank y'all for watching another episode of Roots and Revenue, and then we'll catch y'all next time.
Thank you. I appreciate you, man.
All right, man.
Yes, sir.